Hi, friend. This is Ashima, and welcome to another episode with me. A lot of you have written to me and they want to know what are the first signs and symptoms, what are the areas that they need to be cognizant and aware about when it comes to their child's development during infancy and toddlerhood. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be focusing on the following. So number one, what are the red flags? What are the first and foremost symptoms that you need to be aware of when you're tracking your child's development? Number two, which are the experts that you can go to when it's not getting addressed with your pediatrician? Who are the people that you can then address it with? Number three, what happens in case you receive an assessment and diagnosis from any of the professionals that we talk about? What happens next? Let's begin. So, first and foremost, let's look at some of the earlier symptoms or the red flags that you could really look at in your child, observing him or her as far as the social and the communication aspect is concerned. Uh, a lot of you have shared, and it's empirically also observed from research a few years ago that parents of the children who really have certain delays in development or they develop some of the disorders, when they earlier shared their concerns during infancy of the child with their pediatrician, they were often not getting addressed. It's not with certain any malintention on part of your doctor. It is just that these disorders and delays are new. They have not been commonplace up until 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And your doctor, while he might be an excellent doctor in terms of looking at your child's physical growth, addressing any physiological illnesses, they simply have not seen enough cases because this is really new. It's an epidemic, of course, with the number of children who really get diagnosed and who really are found to be delayed. However, it's still relatively new, especially in India. So the doctors might not be well versed. It's not something that they are trying to ignore with any malintention. But you, as a parent who needs to be an advocate and an equal partner in ensuring that your child's health and development is on track, shouldn't stop just right there. Of course, you should trust your doctor. That's what you have been hearing all along. But nothing stops you from getting these answered, addressed, looking for these answered. And as I've always said, the mother's gut is never wrong. So let's start and begin with looking at some of the first and foremost red flag. Okay, by 6 months, if your child is not giving you a social smile is basically when the child sees familiar people in the household and he or she gives a smile to them, recognizing their faces, right? It's his or her of saying, a way of saying that I see you, I recognize you, right? That starts happening much earlier, but if it's not happening by 6 months, keep a note of that. Also, it's beautiful that we all are recording so many videos and pictures of your child and capturing those precious moments. Also, keep a note of, make it a habit to keep a note of, what happened this day, along with these pictures as well, so that you can really refer back to these at a later stage, and they will be very, very helpful, in terms of tracking all of that. So first is social smile we talked about. Second part is the making of these sounds, right? So by this time, the child needs to be making back and forths of sounds, right? It could be they're not meaningful sound; they're just any random sounds. The facial expressions really come by 9 months. So if there are no back and forth sharing of sound, where you are saying something and the child is reciprocating with some certain sounds, that needs to come by 9 months. If it doesn't come by 9 months, keep a note of that as well. It could be a potential red flag. Then there's no babbling by 12 months. Babbling is a child's way of communicating in his or her own language, or the baby language as we call it. If that doesn't happen by 12 months as well, that's again red flag. So babbling doesn't have to mean anything. It's just that the child is just trying to communicate either around the surrounding, it's trying to say something to a toy. That happens by 12 months. If it doesn't, then keep a note of that as well. Again, it could be something that we need to sort of investigate further. There are no gestures, right? There's no pointing. There is no pointing at familiar objects, right? There is no waving, for example. If that doesn't happen by 12 months, that's again a red flag. If there are simply no words by 16 months, the child is not saying anything, right? He or she is not saying papa, dada, mama, whatever. No words are there by 16 months. Again, keep a note of that. Then there are no meaningful two-word phrases by the time the child is 24 months of age or 2 years of age. If they don't see any words from him at all, two words phrases, which could be simple like need water, go park, Any two word sentences are there, and they need to be spontaneous, which means the child is saying them on his or her own account and it's not repeating. So the child might be repeating, it's fine if he or she is, but that doesn't count. The child also needs to be speaking some two word phrases by 2 months on his or her own. um, and and any loss of any of the skills the child was doing earlier is always a red flag, which means it's a regression, which means the child was doing something earlier and not doing it now. So you need to really be accounting. For example, the child was waving earlier and he or she has stopped waving now. He was smiling at you earlier and she's not doing that now. Also, when you're observing these behaviors in your child, make sure the child is well and there is no other illness right now happening while you're observing this. Of course, if the child is not feeling well, he or she has a fever, of course, they will not be smiling as much, they will not be waving as much, right? So it needs to be uneventful. It needs to be something which is like a regular day in your child's life when you're really observing him or her for any of these symptoms. Um, in case you do see some of these symptoms, as I said, and you're addressed with the doctor as well, uh, and you're not getting the answers to your satisfaction and you've been asked to wait, but consistently, even after these milestones have been missed, you don't get any answer, then there are three professionals actually that you can go to. These are the people who are qualified, they're experienced to assess your child further for any developmental delays. Okay, and the first and foremost is the developmental pediatrician. These are pediatrician qualified as pediatricians, but they specialize in the childhood development. So they really look at your child and assess him or her for any kind of developmental delays or any kind of disorders. Similarly, child psychiatrists and child psychologists also are qualified to assess kids. It's important when you are looking for these professionals. If it's a referral from someone, it's great. If you are doing a search on the scratch on the internet, make sure that in the doctor's profile you see that they are experienced in assessing children for any of the delays. Okay, so we've talked about what are the earliest red flags that you could see in observing your child, and we've talked about who to go to. Um, and I also want to say that what happens, in case you find certain diagnoses from your child. Okay, that's something that I want to address is because I don't want to jump the gun because it could be that during the assessment it comes out to be, oh, it's nothing, it's fine, everything is in order. But even if in case you do get a diagnosis for any of the delays or disorder, please do not lose heart. Okay, it's when it comes to children, we are always so protective. We really want the best for them. So it's obvious that when we hear something like this of a developmental delay or a disorder, it could be really hard for us. But I want to say that from my experience in the last 7 to 8 years working with families, working with children as a child development coach, I have seen that these disorders are nothing but cluster of symptoms, wherein it's a body of saying that there is something I need help, and that is the reason that these symptoms or behaviors that you're seeing in your children are there. In my experience, these symptoms could be alleviated, right? And a lot of times these disorders can be reversed as well. So please do not see your child as in terms of what disorder he or she has received. The child is much more and beyond these disorder that he or she have. These are transient. These could be temporary. We will be speaking about this in our next episode, where I will be talking about what are the steps that you could take in terms of getting your child towards the road to recovery if in case you have certain developmental delay or any kind of disorder diagnosed formally. I hope you found today's episode to be informative. Please do write to me and let me know what you feel about it and what are the other topics of interest to you in terms of childhood development that we will be happy to bring to you. Thank you so much.